All right, this is Art131 with Wyndham Graves, and I have Winfred Hawkins here. Winfred, if you'd introduce yourself and just give us a little background, that'd be lovely.
Sure. Like you said, my name is Winfred Hawkins. I was born in Montgomery, Alabama. A bit of background. I've been drawing since forever. I don't really remember when. I do remember like early drawings and stuff. But, started copying from my dad and got better than him, and he quit drawing because of it. And then after that, we did some art classes. It's BTW. It's a magnet program, Montgomery, and then eventually transferring, going to SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design, where I graduated in 2007. Um, and I've been a graphic designer for the past 10, 11 years. Uh, and recently just going on my own, kind of work for myself now, graphic design as well as other art projects. That's
That's
a
really cool.
that's the nutshell.
So when you were talking about drawing from when you were a young kid, you have a very particular art style, and I was wondering kind of how far back could you go in your art and see that style?
Talking about the style I do currently.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, all your stuff that I've seen kind of has the same feel and flavor to it. And I was just wondering, like, was that a thing that's kind of been there since you were younger, or is that a more recent affect?
No, it's a more recent thing. However, that's kind of a mixed bag actually. So originally I'm actually a very traditional drawer, artist, painter, whatever. I was
Mm-hmm.
all about hyperrealism and uh, you know, all of that. How real can you make a thing? How accurate can you draw or paint?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and of course, growing up, you know, in the mid '80s slash '90s. I say mid '80s because I was born in '82, so I can't really claim the '80s. I don't really remember a lot. I mean, I remember some things, but not enough to say born in the '80s.
Yeah.
Uh, but Ninja Turtles, GI Joe, Thundercats, all that kind of stuff. I drew those as well. I drew X-Men and stuff like that. But it's just because I thought it was cool. It wasn't because it was like, hey, I'm going to be a comic book artist or anything like that. It was just more of, this is cool. I want to draw it. But the main thing was just the realism. Um, and actually, the reason why I have the style that I have now, is actually because out of circuit. And I guess it can be kind of one of the points we were discussing earlier was about uh, your style as an artist. So to me, like, a style is a choice. It's not a crutch.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it is something that you choose to do on purpose. Um, it's not like, hey, I can't draw hands, so I'm not gonna draw hands, and that's gonna be my style. Like, no, that's not a style. That's you not knowing how to draw hands.
Oh, you mean that every kid that draws a character with their hands in their pockets isn't doing it stylistically?
Yeah, exactly, right? You know, um, so um, so basically, in 2012, I actually developed a nerve condition
Mm-hmm.
in my arms, in both my arms, and because of that, I mean, it's a lot better now. Over the years, it's gotten a lot better. But because of that, I developed this kind of style, and it started off with me drawing with my opposite hand. And
Okay.
so yeah, and so I taught myself how to draw with my opposite hand, and um, in that process, I developed all these characters in this world and all this stuff. And then after a while, I decided, I'll say, okay, well, I'm gonna redraw some of the stuff with my good hand, with my left. I'm left-handed,
Okay.
with my left hand. So I continue that even today. So if I'm coming up with ideas for something, I'll draw something with my hand and then go back with my left hand and refine it.
So do you
and
think
that's
that it
kind of how
makes
the
you more creative, or is it just one of those things where it takes away your ability to control it?
both actually, um, because it's my right. Okay, so my right hand is a lot more free and not very specific. It's just like because I know I'm not. I mean, I'm pretty good with my right hand now, but I'm not like as good as I am.
Hmm.
So it since I know that, it's not like I guess the best way to say it um, is I have to try to not draw straight lines with my left hand.
Oh, I see. Yeah, where
It's
you're,
very hard. You know what I mean?
yeah, you'll
Yeah.
automatically do well-fared lines with your left hand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's very specific and it's very like, so with my other hand, it because I know I can't draw straight lines as much, I don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you
I
don't
don't
worry about it.
rely upon that. Yeah, I just draw whatever. It's like a giant brainstorm session.
That's a really cool
A
idea.
creative bomb goes off.
Yeah, if you can't make it
So,
perfect, you don't bother trying.
yeah.
You were talking about, and just before we move on, for those people listening, there are the links to Winfred's website. I would suggest going to that and flipping through his galleries, and you'll get an idea of the characters and art style that we're talking about right now. And for those watching on YouTube later, I'll have the links there as well. Okay, anyway, um, so you were talking about that was the point in time at which you started to develop these characters and this world. Would you go into that a little bit more? Is this like a consistent like MCU style universe, or is this just like a tangent on reality?
Okay, so all right. So there's multiple things here. I'm gonna try not to give the entire story because we'll be here all day.
Well, that's okay.
So
Well, here, is it one universe, or is there two or three separated
no,
assemblies?
it's one main universe. So I will put this little pin on it. The current work that I'm doing now, I'm working on a series of it's called Sheeple,
Mm-hmm.
and the Sheeple don't really have a universe. It's just something I made up.
Okay.
I could probably find a way to fit them in there some kind of way, but right now there's no real story behind them.
Okay.
Um, and so one of the purposes behind doing the characters in the world and stuff is all of my work is well, not all, but maybe 90% of my work is heavily allegorical and heavily, symbolic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I take references from current world situations of things that's happened to me, of politics, of whatever, and I incorporate that into my work. And so anything I do with my left hand is far more political, far more social awareness, far more it touches on heavy things, even though it's very like kind of lighthearted looking and playful or whatever. It's really about a lot of social issues.
Mm-hmm.
And when I do things with my right hand, it's just like fun, free, go lucky, like whatever. It doesn't matter. Um,
That's
uh,
so interesting
um,
that you can actually
for
put
the
two universes out of each hand,
yeah.
or one out of each hand,
It's
I should say.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. Um, but your question was
But yeah, so let's go into the your other universe, the one that you've
right
designed.
right. So um, so I have these characters, and the characters are God, okay, and they all are like a blue kind of skin tone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so one of my issues, I guess, or thinking growing up was that I grew up in a very weird space where I went to like white schools, I went to black schools, I went to like I was been around a lot of people, a lot of different kind of people that didn't look like me,
Mm-hmm.
and also did look like me, and also had very different characteristics and whatnot. And so I told myself that I wasn't going to prescribe to any of that stuff, and I was just going to be my own person. I was going to be my own. What did I say? I was going to be my own culture and my own people, right?
Okay.
And so, um, so these children and part of that world is very spiritual. I grew up Seventh Day Adventist, very
Okay.
like for the sake of for the easiest way to explain it is like you're like a messianic Jew, kind of.
Yeah.
And that's not what they are. It's just that's the easiest way to explain. So anyway, um, I'm saying all that because of I was thinking about okay, how can I have tackle two things? One is the spiritual aspect, and two is this idea that because you're black, you have to draw like people that obviously look black and all this stuff. And I didn't want to play the whole race card thing.
Okay.
So so I made them blue, and
Okay.
that question never comes up,
Yep.
you know. So the all the kids and characters and stuff, they're blue, and part of that comes from Hinduism, because you know they're the way they symbolize a god is they have like a blue tint or like a purplish kind of tint,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's my also nod to spirituality, and they also have like red eyes,
Yep.
and the red eyes would be like the carnal part of like basically you have these two elements warring with each other. You have these physical versus the spiritual in one body, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that the red eyes symbolize the stuff that's inside of you, you know, the blood and you know the humanness of you. Um, and it's also a nod to my dad, who's his the blood vessels in his eyes would get irritated sometimes, and he would make his eyes look red.
Oh,
And
that's
so,
a that's a cool callback.
yeah, yeah, and I also have allergies, so it's part of that too.
I
Yeah,
guess it's a little
yo,
bit of
allergies
everything.
are real.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, oh
especially
yeah,
right now.
oh yeah. So, all right, so the story goes like this: you have these kids, they live on the sun, and they're gods. Okay, so basically, the sun is basically the reason why it's so bright is because that's where all the gods go and they party and they
Okay.
go and hang out, and that's why it's so bright all the time. Okay, and so there's these god kids, children that are just hanging out on the sun with you know their parents or whatever, and they're partying, whatever. And planets are they're also places to live, but they're also modes of transportation.
Okay.
Okay, and in Atlas, so um, notice I'm taking lots of ideas from different cultures and religions
Yeah.
and stuff. So an Atlas is a person, he's the navigator for the planet, for each planet. So he's like, he lives or whatever in the center of this planet and he kind of guides it and takes it wherever it needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So there's this one Atlas who got jealous because he wanted to go party with the other guys and he couldn't do it and he got stuck basically doing paperwork or whatever in this planet, taking care of this other planet. And so he decides that he was going to go to this to this party, hell or high water. And so he goes to this party, or basically he takes the entire planet with him, and he crashes it into this sun. And this particular sun was kind of small, and this particular planet was kind of large. All right, so it caused some problems. So when he
Okay.
crashed into uh, crashed into the sun, obviously he killed everyone on his planet, you know, and these children that were on the sun, they fly off into other dimensions, into, you know, other worlds and planets and stuff like that. And some of them end up on, for the sake of this argument, I'm going to call Earth. Okay.
Okay.
Um, so that's, and their goal is to basically get back to the sun. They're trying to find their way back home, essentially, because
Yeah.
of what had happened. And also, there is, so the Atlas, his parts of his body gets thrown down to this planet, to a planet where some of these children are, and he lands in the ocean, and it's his head, right? His head gets no, actually no, I'm sorry. They keep his head. The gods keep his head. I mean, because they're immortal, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the gods keep his head, and they throw his body down into this ocean uh, water area. And so these fish start nibbling on this god carcass, and because of that, they become aware and they become like more like people. That's like the genesis of their species of people. So they originated from fish.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, um, and they also have a little bit of some power. So they're like demigods, kind of. They're like, and the more of the flesh of this god that you consume, the more powerful and stronger you can get. But if you go too much because you're only a demigod or whatever. You'll go crazy.
Okay.
Um, and so on this planet, there's the planet before he died though, the Atlas dies. He detached five of his fingers, and those are basically those fingers um are on this planet, on that planet, and they become life forms in and of themselves. They become very, very powerful life forms because they're still have this God, and they become the leaders of this planet that they're on. And so they have, there's these five beings who are all powerful, whatever, and on this planet, and they basically guide this culture of fish people or whatever through the millennia and trying to find ways to escape this planet and go get revenge on the gods or whatever. And meanwhile, these children are down there. Some of them have amnesia. Some of them, so the kids don't really know how to control their powers. Like they kind of do, but not really because they're kids. Uh, and so these the Atlas Finger minion guys and the fish people kind of find out about these other little gods, and they manage to actually capture one of them. And one of them is this girl who turns her body into space. Her name is Void, and okay, so Void is actually about a friend of mine who
Mm-hmm.
she had a lot of issues uh, with men and with uh, being sexually assaulted and
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of stuff in her childhood and just throughout life. She's had a huge problem with just people just doing all kinds of crazy stuff to her. So basically, she turns herself into space so nobody can touch her,
Ah.
right? Yeah. But so they managed to capture her some kind of way, and she one of her powers is that she can transport you to other dimensions and stuff like that. And so this is starting to bleed into another series that I did. So I recently about 2 years ago I did a series called Battery Babies, and this is part of their story as well. So so uh, these people find Void, and then they found out how to use her power, and they teleport them to a place called Limbo. And in Limbo, they find these little spirits, these little sprite things, like really really small microscopic things that a different god had put there for a different reason that I don't really want to get into right now.
Okay.
But anyway, they capture all these things, all these little spirit sprite things, and they put them inside a machine, and that's why it's called battery babies, right? Because these little sprite things power these machines, which power their world,
Mm-hmm.
right? They use them for energy and stuff like that, and all of that is also a nod to the transatlantic slave trade,
Yeah.
right? Where you go to another world, you capture a bunch of people, you force them into this system, which would be the machine, and they have to operate within that machine or within that system. And over time, the spirits in those machines clump together to create some sort of consciousness, and they begin to manipulate the machine that they're in. Anyway,
Ah, how
that's a
very
whole other
clever.
story in of itself. Yeah,
No, I
yeah.
really like that.
So that's
That's
a
a
whole
so that's
yeah,
your what is it, creation myth for your
yeah, yeah. Basically, it's the creation,
That's awesome. I never
and
realized it was all there.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it
Um,
makes some of your stuff I don't know if it's darker or more connected or what, but it definitely changes the tone of a lot of your work to know that there is this overarching thing happening.
yeah. And so when I do works, I don't really go a lot into the mythology of it. Um, it's like once you do know the mythology, it definitely helps your understanding of what. And I probably need to do a better job at really uh, creating that story. But
Yeah, you should just
I
do
do
like a
think,
what is it when you see uh like Bible stories for kids, you got to just do that
yeah,
for your
yeah,
characters.
yeah. I thought about that, doing like a series like almost like children's books or whatever.
Yeah, you could tell
Just
that
like
story pretty easily, and it'll make a pretty cool kids book too, just because it's
yeah,
such a neat story and it's relatable.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Why did you specifically choose to use kids for your main characters as opposed to, as you said, their parents, or just a wider
Oh,
range of
right.
ages?
Okay, so actually I got this from my nephew, kind of. So when I was in high school at BTW, I used to draw, I told you I used to draw all kinds of stuff.
Hmm.
And by then it was like Dragon Ball, right? Everyone was drawing Dragon Ball and
Oh
all
yeah.
kinds of stuff. So I would draw myself like a Dragon Ball character, and I would draw my people in my classroom as a Dragon Ball character.
Hmm.
And so oh, something to be said about process during this time
Okay.
is that a lot of times people think because you're creative, like, oh, you just always have been creative, whatever. I'm telling you, I was a very boring kid. Like, I could not, I could not draw something that I could not see.
Yeah.
Okay, I was highly, highly dependent upon physical things. And what broke me out of that was surrealism. I saw surrealism and Salvador Dali and all those people, and I was like, huh, I never thought you could do that.
Yeah.
You can create something real, but it's not real at the same time. It's idea. And so then I told myself, okay, well, I'm going to train myself how to be creative. So what I did was, and this is where my sketchbooks come into play. This is why drawing in your sketchbook is so important.
Yeah. We'll
Um,
talk a lot about sketchbooks later on.
it, yeah. And so what I did was I created a sketchbook. I said, okay, I have some knowledge of comic books and stuff like that. I used to draw X-Men or whatever, Ninja Turtles. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dedicate this sketchbook to just making up characters and things. It doesn't matter how bad they are. It doesn't matter how stupid looking they are. Like that's what I'm gonna do. If I have to use other things for references or whatever, that's what I'll do. And so I did that for about a year,
Hmm.
and that kind of and it was, so you go from highly realistic to strictly cartoon looking comic book stuff,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And I did that for a year, and after that I said, okay, now that that's done, I'm going to combine these two ideas, the realism and this new creative approach, and that's where I started creating like surrealistic works and stuff like that. It's just like it's like brain training. You're just training your brain to get used to thinking about things it's not used to thinking.
Hmm. Yeah.
um,
That makes sense.
yeah. um, so sorry, I lost your
No,
question.
that's fine. It was about why children specifically for your characters.
Right, children specifically, right? So I was drawing myself
Yeah.
a lot, and I was drawing myself at my current age. And so years down the line, after college, whatever, I also play guitar, or I used to kind of play guitar a bit, and I was in this band with my friend, and I had recently quit the band, and during that time, I decided to dive into my childhood. It's something that I never before then I never really like I knew I remember a lot about things that happened to me as a kid, but I never really dove into what they mean or why and how I felt and all that kind of.
Hmm.
So I started doing a lot of mental games with myself as far as remembering my childhood and figuring stuff out. And during that time, I had a lot of weird dreams, a lot of stuff, about my grandmother, about my dad, about, all kinds of stuff. And what I did was I made a series of works where I would draw this god character that I had,
Hmm.
and then I would go around town and take photographs. And then I would superimpose this cartoony like character into these photographs and make it and match all the lighting and everything to make it look like they belonged inside of this photograph.
Yeah.
So, and there's two reasons for that. So you have this idea of you have this quote unquote real world that grown-ups always tell when you get to the real world, you know but to children that is the real world. There, you know what I mean? Like, it's
Hmm.
never, none of this is never not the real world, right?
Yeah.
To a child, like, all of these things actually exist, you know
Yeah. There's no
and
difference between perceived
right,
and actual reality. Yeah.
right. And so my question was, okay, how can I collide these two ideas that are both ridiculous, right?
Hmm.
First of all, adults are just grown children essentially, and the way they treat their systems are a lot like children, even though they perceive themselves not to be. and then you have an actual child who lives in this weird space of almost like fantasy constantly, and also of self-discovery and wonder and all that stuff. And how do you merge those two to make them look like they belong together, right? And so that was that idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, oh well, why do I have to draw myself at my current age? Why can't I just draw myself as a child? Because all of this stuff is is me remembering my childhood. So I'm just gonna draw that. And
Yeah.
that's what one of the main characters is. I mean, it's obviously it's me, and there's actually two versions of me. So there's a male version and a female version, and the male version is actually more subdued and more like shy, I guess, or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
if you make him really really mad, he'll like do some stuff to you. And the girl is like kind of like imagine kind of like a Wolverine like character. Like she's like, don't mess with me. Like I'm gonna mess you up. Like we about to go do some stuff.
Yeah.
Like she's the one that will straight kill you. uh, but she always does it for the greater good. Like Wolverine is not a bad guy, but he will straight kill you if he has to. You know.
Yeah.
Uh, and so that's where also the word. So my name. When I'm doing my left-handed stuff, I go by the name of Akachi, which means hand of God. Um, and it's like it's like an act of God that I've got my arms. I can use my arms again. So I have that word, and so the boy's name is well, the girl's name is Aka, or AKA the word's AKACHI, and the
Mm-hmm.
girl's name is Aka, and we never say the boy's name. We just call him boy, and yeah. And part of that is because he doesn't really speak to anyone well enough to for them to know his name, and which
Okay.
is yeah, and two, which also is a nod. I plus I didn't remember people's names growing up at all. I didn't really talk to. First real conversation, like actual real conversation I had with someone was when I was in. Um, and I also have dyslexia, so like talking with people was not really a thing that I like to do.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Um, yeah. So so um, right, and so part of the reason why the other reason why he's called boy is because when my dad would get upset, he would call me boy all the time, like it's
Yeah.
an insult. But no, but see, like it's funny. It doesn't, it's like okay, whatever. Now, however, context, right?
Oh yeah. I know.
My dad was well, he wasn't. My dad died of a heart attack in 2007, which is one of the reasons why I came back home.
Mm-hmm.
He was roughly 50 something, 50. He wasn't 60. He was almost 60.
Yeah.
But so he lived through a lot of things in his lifetime. He grew up in a time where a white child would call a grown man boy,
Yeah.
and there's nothing he could do about it
Yep.
because if he did, he would go tell his dad, and there would be repercussions for it.
Yep.
Right. So if so, when my dad calls me boy, it's not. It's like it's the most disrespectful thing that he can think of to possibly call me without cursing at me
Yep.
or calling me the N word.
Yeah.
Like, so, and I always kind of made fun of it because I knew that's why he was doing it. Because it's like he's trying to assert something on me that doesn't belong to me. Like those are your ghosts. Those are not mine. You know.
That's interesting.
Um, yes. Uh, and anyway, so that's why the kid's name is Boy. um, uh, and that's also why I draw myself as a kid. So, and then you have the two sides, the boy and the girl side. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, just flipping through your stuff. I don't see many of the girl. I see a lot of the boy one.
yeah, yeah. I because sometimes I struggle to draw her. I really do. There are a few pictures of her, but not a whole lot.
Yeah.
Um, and because I don't really quite know exactly what to do with her, exactly. Like,
That's interesting.
yeah, because it's a side of myself that I don't really do a lot ever.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really go off. pretty easygoing person. So like it's difficult for me to draw something and not put myself in that position.
Yeah, in
So
the boy position. Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah. Let me see.
so I had actually thought about that many times, doing just a series of just her in it, but I could never think about what to do.
And now
I
one
guess I
thing.
should read some Wolverine
Yeah, I
comics.
guess so. Uh, so you need some strong female characters in your life. um, so one thing you have a lot of is floating limbs and appendages. Uh,
hmm
Mainly arms, I think. I don't think I see anything that's not arms. But you do have these like floating arms, but it's usually not the person's arms. They're like just extra floating arms.
Yeah, yeah,
What are those about?
yeah, and
Is that the whole thing with the god fingers and stuff like that, or is there something else going
well,
on here?
it's part of the Hindu. So okay, um, so when the kids get, it's basically like, I guess, kind of like Avatar kind of thing, Avatar the Airbender kind of thing, where like you go into God mode and you have extra arms and you get more powerful and stuff. It's
Hmm.
kind of like that. Um, as far as the storyline is concerned, so the extra arms are not really attached to your body; they kind of float around, and some of that comes from surrealism, where you have this idea of floating objects.
Yeah.
Salvador Dali used that a lot, and other um, surrealists use that idea a lot. Um,
Yeah, it's the one thing
and
that really doesn't happen in the real world.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, uh, and yeah, so that's kind of what that's about. It's just harnessing that spiritual, deep, God like spiritual thing, and using
Awesome.
yeah.
Okay, so let's actually touch on your sketchbook real quick before I
Okay,
forget.
all right.
You do more sketching than I think anybody that I know by probably an order of magnitude. um, so yeah, so talk about if you would your ideas about your sketchbook and what you encourage other people to do with things like that and all that.
Um,
Because you
take
just use your
take.
folded paper
Mhm.
kind, right?
Well, sometimes, yeah. So take, I would say, go buy the most expensive sketchbook you possibly can, and plan to draw something amazing on every page, and then take the first 3 pages and scribble on them and destroy that sketchbook, and then go and buy a cheap $5 sketchbook and fill that thing with every drawing you can possibly think of. Okay, this idea of sketchbooks are these sacred things that you have to draw everything perfect, that's stupid. It's stupid.
Hmm.
Get rid of it. Don't do that ever. Like, you know the biggest stumbling block to people learning how to draw, or just drawing, is the act of drawing. Like, we have this weird reverence towards the object that we're drawing on, like it's a sheet of paper, you know pick up your hand, get a pencil, and just draw on the thing. And then if you mess up, guess what? You have another page. Turn the page, draw it again. Turn the page, draw it again.
Hmm.
Turn the page, draw something else, modify it, draw it again. Like, that's what sketchbooks are for. They're to work out ideas, right?
Hmm.
Um, I also theme my ideas. I have themes in my sketchbooks.
Okay.
So say if I'm having a problem drawing hands, and that's another good thing. Is like, listen, we all know what our weaknesses are.
Yeah.
So whether we want to admit that or not is a different issue, but we need to run towards those weaknesses, not hide from them. So if you for real know, and you're not lying to yourself, that you don't know how to draw hands, go get you a little sketchbook, 5x7 sketchbook, and fill that thing with drawings of hands. That's
Mm-hmm.
the only thing that you do from every angle, every position. Make fists, make peace signs, make whatever you need to do something from memory, study the anatomy, do whatever you need to do. Fill that entire, and I don't mean like in a year's time. I mean with like a month or two.
Mm-hmm.
Like be done with that in a month or two and just like go all in on it. You know, uh, I've got about 100, 200 sketchbooks
So you
in
keep
in
all your
in my
sketchbooks?
yeah, I have a lot of them.
That's interesting.
A lot of a lot of them not full though. I used to have a really bad habit when I was younger, just like starting sketchbooks and not finishing.
Yeah,
So
I
I mean, I
think.
still have some really really old sketchbooks when I was younger. I have some from when I was in high school.
Oh, that's cool.
Uh, yeah, and that's the other thing. Keep your work. Don't throw it away. Don't erase it all. You need to see that work so you can see how you're progressing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like when you go back, you're like, oh my God, look at that arm, man, that's awful. I didn't know. Like Jesus, you know.
Yep.
Don't be afraid to go back. And some of your old work has some really good ideas in there too. Like there's some stuff I would go back and look back like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. I need to redo that. That's pretty cool, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So keep your old work. Um, um and theme your sketchbooks so you have a plan, like so there's and this theme doesn't have to be by subject matter, it can be by media. Like I have sketchbook with just pen drawings in there, like shading and stuff. I have sketchbook with just surrealism. I have sketchbook with cartoony stuff with right-handed drawings. Like recently I did a series of works kind of based off my dyslexia in called reality is not real,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a show in Troy, the Johnson Center of the Arts
That was the one
Center
you
for the
just put
Arts,
up, right?
Troy. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and there's something like 50 to 60 paintings in that series of works, and they're all fairly like abstracted uh, images of faces done in various ways. Uh, but before I painted any of those 60, like I've got 4 or 5 sketchbooks completely full of just drawings for that one show.
Yeah.
And that I did in a year. So when I say I did in a year, I did all the drawings and all the paintings in one year for that show. So
And
sketchbooking,
this is gallery number one on your website, right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So sketches are very important, and it helps you find where the kinks are before you commit to something bigger. Um,
That
and
makes
helps
good
you with your
sense.
process as well.
Now
So
another
yeah,
thing
drawing your sketch.
with sketchbooks is you said that it's not a perfect thing, and a lot of what goes in there is not really good, or is not really like stuff that's ever going to be a finished piece. How do you feel about people asking you to see your sketchbook? Because I always do that to you.
Oh no, I don't care. I don't care. Well, I mean, like the thing is, okay, so I also have a sketchbook with inked drawings in it. So, so my process. So when I'm doing my left-handed style, more graffiti, urban looking kind of,
Hmm.
tighter,
Yeah.
more clean lines. I draw a character or whatever I'm going to draw in my sketchbook. I ink it, make it really nice, and then I scan that drawing, and then digitally color it, and then I turn it into a decal or basically a large sticker, and then um, uh, I paint the backgrounds on a wooden panel. They're usually 24 by 24 is my default kind of size,
Hmm.
and then I apply the decal to the wood to to the panel, and then I seal that. So
Okay.
every piece that you see um, that has that look to it are physical objects. Even though I mean they I use some digital as well, but they're physical things that actually exist in this world. Um, when I'm doing, however, when like okay, so right now I told you I'm working on this idea of sheeple. Um, So the process is that before I actually do the physical board,
Mm-hmm.
I do like a mock-up of it in strictly digital in a computer of what I want the color scheme to kind of be, of the kind of elements I want to. And so right recently I've posted some of them on Facebook. Those are not the final works. Those are like the more digital versions of the work,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll probably be the prints. I'll probably use those for prints and not the finished. Like when I do the originals, those will be the only ones that exist, and
Oh,
you
okay.
cannot get those. And so when I
Yeah.
make prints of them, they're going to be the digital version.
Okay, so it's
So
without
you
all
can
the
tell the difference.
additional paint and all of that.
Right,
Okay,
right. So
that's a good way to do
um,
that.
yeah. So I do have sketchbooks with nice drawings in there. Partly partly because if I'm drawing with my left hand, it's difficult for me to not draw straight lines, and for
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
Yep.
So like it's going to look nice more often than not. If you want to see messy drawings, you have to look at my right-handed sketchbooks because those are very like crude and crazy.
Yeah. Now you talked a little bit about shooting towards urban and graffiti art, but we live in a place that really doesn't have a whole lot of that.
Yeah.
Do you still use ideas from stuff around here, or do you use the more traditional sources of graffiti art, like 1970s New York and things like that?
Okay, so two things. I had a friend growing up. His name was Mario, and he was really into graffiti, and well, he still is now. And I learned a lot from him about graffiti. Like
Excuse
I'm
me.
not like an expert. Like I would never call myself a graffiti artist. Like not ever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an artist that uses graffiti for the things I want to use it for. But I'm not a graffiti artist at all. Um, and I learned a lot from him. As far as the graffiti that I like, I cannot stand New York style. I cannot stand American style graffiti.
Okay, so what are you
We've
looking
been doing
for?
we have been doing the same thing for like decades, and it has not changed. And it's heavily based on letter forms, which is okay, but even our letter forms are kind of boring.
Okay, yeah.
If you go to Europe, or if you go to even Germany or even Latin America, they do some very interesting things with shape. It's like it's evolved. You can see that, hey, they took this idea and they really pushed it forward. There's characters involved. There's different color schemes. There's all kinds of wacky, crazy, like um, uh, experimentation with letter forms and like three-dimensional stuff, and just
Mm-hmm.
like, and that's not to say that there are no good, American graffiti. I mean, this is where it started. I mean, of course there are, but I'm just saying, it's just like, to me, I feel that America has gotten the American graffiti scene has gotten stuck, and we've been stuck for a long, long time, and we don't know how to move past it. We have this thing for nostalgia, like, oh, you have to the throwback to this old, like, dude, I don't care about your old throwback, whatever. Just make it look cool, okay? Like, I don't care. So, um, um, going exploring other places and other cultures and seeing what they do with something, that's what I'm more into. I've kind of given up on my local scene to be any type of inspiration for me, unless it's like situational stuff, or
Yeah,
spiritual stuff, or things that aren't directly related to art, but that influence my art.
yeah. Yeah, I'm looking through some of your stuff that does have graffiti in it. It looks like you're using a little bit of Japanese influence stuff with some of your character and letter
Yeah,
forms as well.
yeah. And the other part of the graffiti, my style, when I choose to do graffiti, it's like I don't try to do super crazy. Okay, there's three types of um, graffiti forms or whatever. You have your hand style, which is basically like just writing letters really fast, or really expressive tags. And you have a throw up, which are a quick throw, which means like it's basically like the bubble letters, kind of.
Uh
People they hate it when you say bubble letters, but that's
huh.
essentially kind of what it is. No, yeah, I mean, you're not supposed to call it that, but
Yeah.
anyway, it's for the sake of the arguments. That's the easiest thing to say. It's basically like if you're going in the subway or whatever, and you see, and someone has to, put up something real quick. It's a throw up. You throw it up real quick, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
have this certain style that you do. You know exactly how do you do this thing. You do it real quick and you leave, so you don't get caught by the police.
Yeah.
Uh, and then you have like a piece, and a piece is just like your, piece de resistance type thing. Like, yo, I'm about to, take this wall and do something crazy on, uh, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to treat my I like so I like to think of myself existing between a quick throw and a piece, like in between that. It's
Okay.
like I'm not trying to do something super super, like I'm not trying to, like I said, I'm not trying to be a graffiti artist.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not trying to do something horrible, do some really bad throw either, you know? So my thing is like I want to be just kind of good enough. I don't want to be like super super awesome or anything. I'm not trying to, break new ground in the graffiti world. I just want to do something that looks cool. Uh, so that's kind of where I'm at, and I'm choosing to be content with that, right? Like I said, style is a choice,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's where I'm choosing to be, because a lot of anytime I put my mind to something, it usually takes over,
Yeah.
So I have to pick and choose my battles. Like this is one battle that, like, listen, if you look up artists like Dame, Daim, or he's really cool. Or if you look up a guy named, I don't really know how to pronounce his name, but it's Aryz, and Initi.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they're really good muralists. They're more like graffiti murals. Like they've made a career out of, doing graffiti and that kind of. I really like those guys a lot. But
Cool.
yeah,
Um, you were talking about not quite being a child of the '80s, but not quite of the '90s either. You're right in the middle. Um, and looking through your work, you have a lot of the Japanese style of that time period of the late '80s, early '90s, and also a lot of the
yeah,
color schemes. Of course, the
yeah,
blue for your characters and things like that, but just the other colors you choose to contrast them with are. Uh, some of them are almost like early '90s X-Men and Mega Man
yeah,
style. Some of the mechanics are very Mega Man and things like that.
yeah.
Is the Japanese stuff just a continuation of the old Dragon Ball thing, or is there some other aesthetic
Well,
desire there?
because okay, so part of it is that I don't want to spend a whole lot of time getting to where I'm trying to go.
Okay.
I really do like the cell shading and whatnot of, American comics and stuff like that. And like I told you, I used to draw Wolverine and
Yeah.
Magneto and all those people all the time. Like I know how to do that. It's just, do I want to spend hours doing that?
Yeah.
Is the question, right? Is like, and the answer is no. So I'm not going to do that. I mean, I may do a few drawings here and there, maybe if I want to in that style, but so part of it is like is my so like I said, I mix and merge a lot of things. So like, Akira, I love Akira.
Yeah.
Uh, Ghost in the Shell, Fist of the North Star, Ninja Scroll.
And just
Like
before people
I'm
go on, just before we go on, if people have not seen Akira,
Oh my God.
I think it's up on Amazon Prime right now.
Please go
Um,
watch that.
yeah, please go watch that. It's absolutely excellent, and there's lots of good
And
critical work done on it too.
oh yeah, and you're talking about, and there's a lot of social commentary on there.
Oh
A
yeah.
lot
Oh
of
yes, yes,
Oh my
yes.
goodness, it's crazy. I'm actually very surprised that they did a lot of that stuff. You're talking about, I mean, like, people have, like, it. I'm very surprised that they did that back when they did that, because I can definitely see some people getting in trouble over
Oh
that
yeah.
movie. Um, but
All right,
even just
continue.
the
I'm sorry.
manga, even the mangas as well, because I also own the mangas. There's six books, and they're really thick, big books. And man, it goes so deep, like it's not even like, it's crazy. Anyway, but I really love um anime movies. I'm not really a fan of series so much because the animation quality is very low. And
Oh,
I
I see.
know
Yeah.
and I know that like basically anime movies are the way of the dodo right now, and it's very difficult to get because of the costs and especially hand drawn stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
when I was watching anime growing up and I saw a movie, the things that blew my mind were the movies. Like I said, Fist of the North Star and like, Akira and Ninja Scroll and stuff like that. And they're not like they're not the thing about anime that people forget is like cartoons is the way the world communicated before there were books. Okay, it wasn't like, oh, cartoons are for kids. Like, no, no, cartoons were a way of communication. Period.
Yeah.
So this idea, you don't. It's only until Disney came along that we thought cartoons were for kids.
Yeah.
Okay, I believe it's the very first comic strip that was published in a newspaper was of porn.
I can see that.
Yeah, and since then they banned that.
When you look at
So
all the
like,
graffiti on the walls of on the walls of Pompeii, and it's all just inappropriate
yeah,
stuff drawn on the walls.
yeah, yeah, and what do you think the stained glass windows in cathedrals are? Those are cartoons telling a story of Jesus because the people couldn't read.
Yep.
Okay, like that's what that is for. So this idea, like people like, oh, anime, oh, you're such a child, whatever. Like, no, that's not. Most of the world consumes some form of cartoon, comic, anime as a form of communication.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say most of the world, I mean China or Asia and India. I think it's like something like 2/3 of the world lives there,
Yeah.
or something crazy like that. Like that's where most of the people on the earth live, and that's what the most people on the earth consume is those things. So like, that's the other thing that I battle with a lot when I was first starting to draw this style that I do is because I come from a background that's very traditional, very like, hyper realistic or whatever. And sometimes I'll be like, man, what am I doing? Like, this is stupid. Like, why am I doing this? Like, whatever. But, but it's also because at that time, I couldn't sit down for hours and hours and draw a thing very realistically.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, it's kind of funny because over time, like when I was doing the whole realistic thing and I was trying to get people to think about hard issues and stuff, people would just go up to my piece, get super close to it, say, oh, that looks like a photograph, and then walk away, and that's all you get. That's all
Yep.
you get.
That's
But
not terribly
now,
useful.
yeah, but now it's just like people. I get all the questions in the world. What does this mean? What does that mean? Because they don't have anything to reference it to. It
Yeah.
doesn't look like anything. So that I've eliminated that part of the equation. So now the only thing that you're forced with is content. Like, what is this? What does this mean? You know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So that's pretty funny, uh, but or ironic or whatever you want to call it.
No,
Um,
sometimes it looks like you also poke fun at that whole culture, the whole what is it, the otaku culture.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
one of your pieces is named "Notice Me, Senpai."
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay, okay, so that one is crazy on many many different levels.
All right, let's go
Okay,
into that one.
so
This is the
so that
for
one,
those of you following along at home. If you go to Gallery 3, it's the second one down on the left. It's the one with the cat.
right, and that's
Yeah.
that's on the winfredhawkins.com website.
Yes. Yeah.
And okay, so all right, so oh boy, where did I start? So there's some Japanese symbols
Mm-hmm.
on the right side, and those words are literally the words that so there's this thing in anime where they make cat sounds or animal sounds, cute animal sounds,
Uh
and
huh.
that's what that is.
That's
That
a
those words literally mean N-A-N-A-A-N-A-A-A, like nya nya nya. that's
yeah.
that's literally what that is. um and you also see references to Pikachu, which is a
Uh huh.
Pokemon, right?
The tail.
Which
Yeah.
is on there. You gotta catch them all, kind of thing. But it's also the piece is also a battery baby. So it's a battery baby wearing a cat like a Pikachu cat like outfit. right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's saying, "Notice me, senpai," and it's also kind of falling apart.
Uh-huh.
So remember I told you that so the series this series is called the Blue Line Complex, which is a commentary on police brutality and how people view. I'm not trying to say like police are bad or police are saints either. I'm just saying this is how I feel about it,
Yeah.
and take it as you want to. Okay, so um, so I use the battery babies in this instance to one get rid of a problem, which is the demonization of people, right?
Yeah.
People often say, "Oh, well, all you need is more black policemen." Like, no, that's not true either. Or, oh, or all policemen aren't bad, or whatever, and that's true too. So you remove people from the equation because honestly, the thing that we're not talking about is the system. It
Mm-hmm.
is the system that allows these things to happen. That is the problem. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter who you put in the uniform. As long as this system maintains itself, then there will always be these problems.
Well, and using the
Okay?
battery babies, like you were talking about earlier, is a really interesting way to get at that.
Exactly. And that is why this is a prime example of why I have certain characters, because if you know the backstory behind why certain characters exist, and then you put that character in another situation, you have dual realities going on at the same time. Because now you'd also know, okay, oh, sorry, that's my um. You also know now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, you're good.
All right. All right. So you also know now it's also a kind of a commentary on slavery,
Uh huh.
right? And being infused in and with slavery comes policing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Becomes the management of black peoples, right? Or any just really honestly just any minority peoples period. America has always had a problem, whether it's black or Italian or whatever. America has always had a problem with people who don't belong, kind of, or people who don't fit in or come from somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, so you have this black problem, and so dealing with policemen and how black people deals specifically with how minority people deal with police is vastly different. And this idea that like policemen are can do no wrong and are saints is just flawed to be. Um, and so with this piece, you also have you also have let me look it up here
Okay.
real quick. No, I don't want to tell you. I don't want to tell you something wrong.
No, that's fine. Take it. Take your time.
All right. So on the top of his head, you have a number. That number does not make sense. The comma's in the wrong place. You see that?
Oh yeah,
It
I
says
just
one.
noticed that.
So that is 789 people that were killed in 2017 as a result of police brutality. That's what that number,
Ah.
right? And also on his helmet, on if you go down below those letters,
Uh huh.
below those words, you see BLK equals MC squared, right?
Uh huh.
It's Black Matter. It's also a joke on like
Yep.
Black Lives Matter, but it's also Black equals matter, like an actual physical thing,
Yeah.
you know. So which is energy, right? Uh, if any of you know, I read a lot about Einstein. Einstein's one of my favorite people. But so it's also you have like this idea of energy, matter is energy, and like we are also energy. We're also people matter, and just doing wordplay with the word matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So um, that's part of that too. And so the last level of this, or actually it's not even the last level, it's just like, so I know, I mean, you can go on and on and on
Oh
for
yeah.
days. This is why I like it. So like you have this idea. So Banksy did this piece in the Middle East a while some years ago, and he took a wall that was bombed out and painted a cat on it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is that whole internet trope of like, no one pays attention to something unless you put a cute cat on it,
Yeah.
right? So that's why the piece is called "Notice Me, Senpai." It's because this battery baby is like falling apart and it says, "Notice me." Basically, like, don't like I'm here, like treat me nice, like look at me, I'm a cute fuzzy cat. Don't like, destroy me kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the blue line, which in each piece there's a blue line, and so he's standing above that, in front of that, so you have this blue line and the caution tape and all that kind of. So there's so many different things. There's so many different ways, and that also can be a commentary on just how people, minority people, have to adjust themselves according to certain situations.
Yeah.
It's just like I don't think it's so weird how many hats we have to put on to in order to be able to exist day to day and not go crazy.
Yep.
You know, like if you're around a white woman and then you're alone, you have to be extra, extra, extra nice because you don't want her to feel like you're some thug gangster dude, or if you're like, what I mean, so you have to do so much just to get the benefit of the doubt, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember one day. Okay, I'm gonna tell you this story, and we can talk about something else if you want.
Okay.
But I was at the tipping point, and this white kid, I was sitting next to him, and he was talking about how he got pulled over by the cops, and he was like, "Yeah, man, man, I was so drunk, and I was speeding, man. I had this blunt out and everything, and he's just going on about how he had all these offenses, and like the guy looks at me and says, "Oh, well, you seem like a nice kid. Just let me go." You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's so crazy, and the whole time my mouth is just on the floor, and
Yep.
I'm like, what do you mean? Like, do you understand that I can't have a tail light out?
Oh yeah.
Like, do you understand, like, I can't be driving too fast or even too slow? That if I've gotten pulled over for like rolling stops that are barely even like, do you understand? I have to come to a complete stop, like complete sit there for 2 3 seconds stop, like, you know what I mean? And you're
Yep.
over here telling me that you were speeding with weed and drunk, and this guy just lets you go. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I would be in jail. Like, forget about it. You know, you know, do not collect $200. Go straight to jail. Like, done.
Yep.
I was also on a grand jury once, and they tried to. There's this kid who was walking, and he had 0.002 ounces of weed in his pocket, which is basically dust
Mm-hmm.
residue. They tried to put this kid in jail for that,
Yeah.
and they just stopped this kid randomly. He wasn't doing anything, you know. And it's just like, and I mean, the case got thrown out because it's ridiculous. But that's the kind of stuff that we're talking about, and
Yeah.
that's what people don't understand about like what white privilege is. It's not about money. It has nothing to do with money. Money can play a factor in it, but it's not the prime. When people say white privilege, is more, think about it more like a white advantage, where you're given the benefit of the doubt more often than not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, oh, they're a good kid. Well, a few years ago, now I'm preaching now and I need to stop, but a few years ago,
I was
there's a,
gonna give you
there's
another
these,
minute.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The, there's these two people, I forgot. There's a boyfriend and girlfriend, these two white kids, and they were literally going around robbing people and killing people. It's like a modern day Bonnie and Clyde, and everyone's like, "Oh, they're really good kids. They don't, they're doing all this." I'm like, "Yo, really?
Yep.
Wow, really?" But if I go down the street and my pants are sagging just a little bit, I don't have to be doing anything. I'm a thug.
Yep.
Like, really? Okay, that's how you're gonna treat this, huh? Like, all right. All these people going out shooting people at churches. Oh, he's just a lone wolf. All these white supremacists. No, he's just, you can't label entire people because of one person's mistake. Oh, really? Okay. Interesting that you say that. you know? So, anyway, that's kind of what this whole series is about. And
Yeah.
some of these pieces are dedicated to certain people, like Tamir Rice, or George Steiner Jr., or Emmett Till, or Eric Gardner. If you go through the series, uh, so
Yeah, I think the ones that are
yeah,
directly for somebody have that labeled underneath them. Yeah,
right,
it looks
right,
like they're labeled directly underneath them. So for people who
right.
are looking at that, they can go look through those. Um, Before we move on from this piece specifically, there's the whole thing, and I see this in my classes as well, in my art classes, that most of my students are really, really into Japanese culture, anime, and just the whole thing. Um,
Mhm.
and I find it more prevalent among black students than among white students. And you're into it. Is there something in there that speaks to you in particular?
Um, for me, honestly, it's how unashamed they are of certain things, right? Like Americans, uh, this American world that we lived in, well, maybe not as much now, but when I was younger, this whole, pretend to get along and be happy and like, American dream, blah, 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 and just like pretend like everything's okay when we all know it's not, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing, you know, and that shows itself um, when our cartoons, the way we do our cartoons or the way we advertise to children is like, hey, everything's happy-go-lucky, yada yada, ooh, look, hey Arnold, or even the Ninja Turtles, which is supposed to be violent, is somehow comical, and they never hurt anybody ever, despite being ninjas and despite having sharp weapons. Like, you know what I mean?
Apparently, the original comic books for Ninja Turtles were really dark.
Yes, they were. They were wonderfully brutal and
Okay.
just like, yeah, and but the thing is, anime does not shy away from that. Like there is blood in Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
Like there is nudity in Dragon Ball. There is cursing in Dragon Ball. Like, people die in Dragon Ball. They don't go to the afterlife, whatever. They actually die and don't exist anymore. you know,
Mm-hmm.
like, if you watch Ninja Scroll, there's some rape scenes in there. There's like, it's very, very real and very like, no, we're gonna show you this. There's people's arms getting chopped off and like, you know, to me that was like refreshing, like to see some of that stuff. Like, whoa, wait, what? I didn't know this was a possibility. Like, we can do that. Is that something we could do? Like, you know.
Yeah.
And then when you dive into the social commentary of it all, and like, oh man, it's just crazy. Uh, and even just the visuals of it's a very adult cartoon that it's an adult movie that happens to look like a cartoon. That's what it is,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm drawn to because visually I'm a visual artist. I like stuff that looks cool. So, you
Yeah.
know,
That's true.
enter Afro Samurai, enter Akira, enter Ghost in the Shell.
Yep. They
So
definitely do that thing. Oh man. Sorry. Stretching. Okay. Anyway. Um. So you do a lot of these things that are these super heavy social commentary pieces. Is all the stuff you do like that, or is some of it more lighter and just silly stuff, or is kind of how do you
no,
decide what deserves to get to be art?
it all starts off as silly stuff because it all starts off with my right hand at first. Um, there's a picture floating around somewhere of my very first battery baby. It's probably on and it's so goofy looking and silly looking. And it's really also just an accident. I was just trying doodling and doodling and doodling, and then I just drew this stupid looking thing, and I was like, oh well, maybe it's a baby. Oh no, no, it could be. Oh, it has a battery on it. Oh, it could be a battery baby. Oh, I know. It could be like this thing where you like, you just develop the story. You just as you're drawing it, you kind of develop the story, and then years went by, and I didn't really use it for anything. And this police brutality stuff came up, and I was just like, I know what to put here. You know,
I see. Yeah.
so it's kind of it's kind of by circumstance, like what is happening to me or in the world at the time dictates what I use when.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also just it all comes from my right hand. Every character that I've drawn in the past 10 years or so has been from my right hand doodles. Um, so it's just a matter of taking those, um, recognizing a situation, seeing which character or idea fits in that situation, and then drawing something, it goes back to the style argument where you're it's almost like your subject matter dictates to you how you should draw it, not the other way around. You
Yeah.
know, I don't draw things and then find a subject matter to fit that. You know what I mean? Uh, I think of an idea that I'm trying to express and say, and I look around and say, okay, what do I have currently expresses this idea, or can fit to express this idea,
So what
right?
what symbols do you already have drawn as visual objects can then get shoved together to make a piece that means something?
Right, right. And sometimes I have to invent them. Sometimes they don't already exist.
Mm-hmm.
Like for instance, if you take the piece Pieta, which is about George Steiny Jr., which is basically the Pieta is a famous painting by Michelangelo,
Yeah.
sculpture by Michelangelo, where the Virgin Mary is holding a dead Jesus on her lap.
Yeah.
Um,
For everybody
and so
following
there's
along at home, it's the bottom image on Gallery 3 on your website.
right,
Yeah.
right. And so in this case, you have two robots. George Steiner Jr. would be the Jesus in this case, and he's like laying down on this other robot's lap, all thrown, in pieces and stuff. And he also has the robot that's holding him has hero on his shirt. So that's the other thing I played with too, as far as instead of putting police, putting hero. This idea of almost like God worship, like you can do no wrong. Like everyone wants to be a hero, the good guy in their own mind. However, reality is something different. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's how we see ourselves, and then there's also how things actually are. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and you have this robot looking at this other robot, like almost like it's done something wrong, or it wants to help so badly, but it's also contributing to the problem at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so the shape of that robot head comes from another anime, or it's inspired from another anime called um, Macross.
Oh yeah.
So
Okay.
Macross,
Yeah.
yeah, you remember Macross is the old cartoons where airplanes turn into robots and they fly around.
Uh huh.
Well, there's a movie called Macross Plus, and in this movie there is a there is this machine that, and this guy gives this machine this certain chip to where it becomes self-aware, and that machine is called Sharon, and she's like this tall, square-like black box that's very slick and chic looking, and has a red dot for the eye, and that head is based off that. It's Sharon,
Okay.
and so in this world also, which I forgot to mention, in this world in the Battery Babies, once a battery baby becomes more aware and is able to form a consciousness and be able to manipulate the body that it's in, they initiate a program called Alex. And so on its chest, on the hero,
Uh
on
huh.
its chest, you see like these little words. You can't really quite make it out, but it says Alex dash 009 or whatever.
I see it. Yeah.
So so what they do is they take that robot that's becoming self-aware, and they put a program and make it to where it now is almost like a policeman of these battery babies to keep them in line, to keep them from revolting, right?
Yeah.
So, and so that's what that. So this other robot used to be a smaller battery baby before it had the Alex program put on it, because basically it knew too much. It started learning too much, and they had to do something
That's
about it.
got all sorts of interesting symbolic content.
Right, right, exactly. So, um, so yeah, that's what that is. But so all of that fits perfectly in with this theme of blue line complex, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whole thing. So yeah, so I feel like the subject, what I'm choosing to talk about is even now when I was talking about how I'm drawing sheeple right now.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have anything currently that really fits that idea, and I had drawn sheeple a while ago, a long time ago, and um, So I was just like, yeah, sheeple fits. It doesn't fit inside of this world. It doesn't have anything to do with anything in the dialogue that I already have. So I'm just gonna make some. I'm just gonna make some sheeple that fit this idea. Of this idea of blindly just following anybody or blindly following whatever politics or whatever Fox News says or whatever. Without devoid of actual truth, devoid of actual fact, and like I'm just gonna believe anything anyone ever tells me because they must be right because they're on the news channel, like
Yeah.
uh
And for those,
uh
are there any of those up on Instagram or anywhere for people to see?
there are some on Instagram and there are some on my Facebook,
Okay.
on the Akachi Facebook
Okay.
page. um there's only there I haven't gotten too terribly far into. I have a lot of drawings that I haven't posted, but finished or I guess the first phase of a finished drawing, I have about three of those, maybe three or four of those up. And they're just the digital version. um, so
So are those going to be the 24 by 24, or are you moving more
yeah.
towards that? I noticed that your most recent show, it looks like all those are 5 by 7s.
Yes. Okay. So
The reality is not real ones. Yeah.
right. So the reality is not real is a different. All those were painted with my right hand.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't impose any rules or regulations on my right hand at all. I just whatever I do is what I do, and I come up with the style. For this particular series, I chose not to do the whole left-handed thing. This body of works is about dyslexia and dealing with dyslexia and all the pros and cons that come with that. Because there are a lot of pros, but there are some cons too. Um, One of those pros is also visualization and being able to assemble objects in your mind and rotate objects in your head. Um, yeah, it's like a mind mapping. You have like a matrix in your brain that allows you to like assemble things
No, that's
easier.
interesting. You do find it easier to do like this spatial awareness stuff than you think most people have?
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I'll like you know, there's lots of times where I was just like, it's kind of funny because sometimes I'll catch myself trying to draw something or sketch something, and an hour will pass and I have not drawn anything, and the only thing I've done is sat there and just stared and got lost into a white square, which is my sheet of paper,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm building things in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I just bypass that and just start drawing. And so when I'm drawing with my left hand, that happens a lot. Okay, because I'm trying to be very purposeful. But if I'm drawing with my right hand, I just doodle. It doesn't matter. Like I'm not trying to find. It's like when Michelangelo's trying to, was it? He's trying to free the person in the stone,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm not trying to free the drawing in the paper. I'm just doing it with my right hand.
Yeah.
Um, and with my left is more of a very conscious, very specific kind of thing. Um, so yeah, the sheeple will be 24 by 24 when I'm done with it, and it'll be physical, actual object
Yeah.
when I'm done with it. But the dyslexia series is strictly based off of just, hey, this is the only thing the series will ever be about. That, like, this is it. This is like the full conclusion of what it is. It's not going to morph into anything else. Like, this is what it is. How I draw that can change, but the thing actually is finite and is never changing. Um, and so I also chose to draw it with my opposite hand because it fits the theme, right? And
Yeah.
one of the theme is that, right, reality is not real, and it's also like this idea of dual realities, of where something may seem a certain way to me but not a certain way to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's multiple different ways to solve a problem, and part of this problem for me was also like recognizing that, like, okay, because there are different ways to solve this problem, there needs to be a different way that I solve this problem, which is these series of works.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm gonna use something that I'm comfortable with, but I'm not as familiar with, and I'm just gonna draw everything with my opposite hand. Uh, So that's what that is. And even in these drawings, they still have red eyes.
Yeah, I
Sometimes
noticed
they
that.
may not have still may not have blue skin. Sometimes they may have blue in it, but um, they all have red eyes. Um, and there's also a little bit of symbolism with like there's some little squiggles that kind of look like bees.
Uh-huh.
They're like little weird, like zigzaggy things with they have wings and they're like kind of like bees. That's like a nod to like the spelling bee, you know. Um, and
Explain that one.
a, it's like a nod to a spelling bee, like So dyslexia
Oh,
is
for
like you
dyslexia.
have
Okay, yep,
yeah yeah
I got
yeah
it. I figured it
right right
out.
right right right. So but here's the thing though, dyslexia is not defined by having problems reading or recognizing symbols on a page. Okay, those are symptoms of what's actually going on. That is not like it's not it's not about reading at all. It's about how you process information. It's how your brain is wired to process information.
It's the
So
transposition of symbols, right?
kind of, yeah. And it's just like, so, okay. So anytime I do a series, I read up on a few things. Partly because it has to do with me anyway. So this is okay. So if you have a person with dyslexia, the way the brain communicates is or relays messages is that you have dendrites or your different cells that um, shoot energy to each other to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, in a person who has dyslexia, your cells are spread further apart, which means that signal has to travel further to get to its destination.
Huh.
All right. So for me, reading takes 5 times as much energy for me to do than another person.
Ugh.
And for that reason, you get tired. You get very tired a lot easier when it comes to reading and recognizing symbols like that. And so sometimes words will morph into other words.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just get extremely tired and just go to sleep. Sometimes your vision gets blurry, you can't focus. Um, Sometimes you can read a word and you just won't understand what it says. It's just like speaking Chinese or something. You can read a word, but you I don't know what that means. I don't know what it says. I have no idea what it is. I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah. Yep.
uh, because your brain gets tired, it gets fatigued. Um, but um, so that's what's happened. That's the symptom of what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the good parts about that is when we come up with solutions, because our thoughts basically travel to all kinds of regions on our brain because our cells are spread out a little bit further, that means we come up with solutions that are far more creative usually because we have to draw upon other parts of our brain to make in that information.
Mm-hmm.
um, so um, we're very good at seeing systems as a whole and giving commentary or giving advice or giving direction as to how that system functions. We're not very good at minute details of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, like I know your name, Wyndham. I know your name because I've said it so many times. It's not because that I understand that name. It's just because I remember that because I've said it so many times. When
Yeah.
I think of Wyndham, I literally see your face. I
Yeah.
literally see you. I literally have an understanding of your personality. Words do not mean anything to me, right? So like if
That's
you know
interesting.
those games, yeah. If I know who you are because I know who you are, not because of what you are called,
Now I have a bunch of
right?
word games that I want to play with you.
No, because you will fail. You will fail, sir, because I don't play word games.
Oh no! I want to
No, I
see.
do not do that. And when people are trying to be weird with me, we're in an argument, or they're trying to be like slick and using like semantics.
Oh, that's
When
not
like
nice.
I will call you out on it. But listen, I know you know what I'm saying. I know
Yeah.
you understand the context of what I'm saying. Yes, I said this word, but you know what I mean by it. Stop playing with me.
Yep.
You know, because I cannot like no, we are not doing that. Okay, like It's I mean, and that really frustrates me a lot, especially when
Oh, I bet.
someone
Yeah.
knows what you're talking about, and they just say, "Oh, well, this word, blah 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 blah." It's like, listen, yeah, I said this word, but you know what I mean. So stop playing the game.
Yeah, I think that that could be a problem for a lot of people is which side of that they
Yeah,
fall on and who they're speaking to and whether or not it's a cooperative conversation
right,
or a
right,
antagonistic conversation.
right. And I don't know if you know this, but one third, roughly 30% of people in America have dyslexia. A lot of people don't even know they have it.
I didn't think it was that high in the
You
U.S.
know, no, it's high. Like I originally I want to say in the world, but I'm not too sure about the world. But in America, it's one third of people. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And some because it's in some cases it's more severe than others. There have been cases where I still write certain things upside down and back. I used to draw upside down and backwards when I was younger.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I used to draw and write upside down and backwards. And I
That's
also
just
remember figuring it
weird.
out. Yeah. Um, so um, what was I gonna say? Uh,
Now, when I have
uh,
an interesting question about that. When you were doing the more realistic kinds of art, did you find that you'd transpose features on people's faces and things like left to right?
no, no. I mean, no. When I was drawing, I mean, it never. The thing is, you don't know you're doing it until you know you do it. Like sometimes, like this is why multiple choice. So this is why school is poses problems because for the person with dyslexia, especially for multiple choice questions,
Mm-hmm.
if we actually understand a subject, remember I told you about how seeing systems as a whole and
Yeah.
understanding how it as a whole influences each other, we could make arguments as to why A is the answer and also C is the answer. And
Mm-hmm.
also B could kind of be the answer if it wasn't for this, this, and this.
Yeah.
We could argue that. It's not because it's not like we don't know what's happening. The problem is we know too well what is happening,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so you have to, by process of elimination, like you have to say, okay, well, I know for a fact that this isn't right. There's always one or two questions or answers on there that's just blatantly wrong, right?
Yeah.
But the problem comes when you have two questions that are somewhat similar or could be argued. At that point, you have a 50-50 chance of getting it right
Yeah.
because it's a guess. Because I don't know what you, teacher, have in your brain what you think is the right answer. So you guess
Oh yeah.
and you cross your fingers and hope it's right.
Yep.
It's not that I don't know the answer, it's just that you have an answer that you want. And I literally have had many teachers do that. And it's like, oh, well, that's not the answer I'm looking for. Like, I don't give a flying fish about what your answer is. Like, this is right. Like, what do you mean right now? you know?
Yeah, I think
Like,
that's just
it's so
also a
infuriating.
collection of bad teachers.
Oh, yeah. Also, a very collection of bad teachers, right? So, yeah, that can be very problematic sometimes when you're
Yeah. Yeah, and just to get back to some of your stuff and your work specifically, uh, why did you choose the material set that you chose? Why this and
Mhm.
not sculpture? Why this and not like just solid oil painting? Or why this and
Oh,
not digital work?
oh,
What's this group of things got for you?
group of things that's in left hand or versus right, or just my
No,
style in general.
why did you choose, pen and ink and a little bit of digital, and then what paint do you use? Do you use acrylic or?
I paint with acrylic and watercolor or watercolor at some.
And you said you did it on wood board, right?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So
Yeah. So
so with
why that collection of stuff and not say on pieces of aluminum or on pieces of glass or on a more traditional
um
canvas?
so ease comes into play. So on the wooden panels, I also use spray paint as well.
Okay.
Um, and I also use wooden panels on there as well because once you do a layer, you can sand it.
Ah,
which creates a very interesting textures, and that's how I get that weathered look. So I'll paint something. There's like 10 and 12 layers on each one of those paintings. Where
okay.
I'll paint something. So this is part of the visualization. I will paint something and then completely paint over that with something else, knowing that when I sand it, there's certain I want a very specific element to kind of come through,
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
right? So, and you can also scratch it and do all kinds of stuff on the wooden panel. That's one reason, because I also love the weathered look. I got this idea from like watching trains, like graffiti on trains in the old buildings and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They have this wonderful, it's like a wonderful poetry that you see when something is weathered. It's just like it's been through a lot. You know what I mean? It's been through some stuff, but it's still kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I like that idea. So, which is the same thing, which same thing as with black people. We've been through a lot, but we're still here. We're still hanging around. You know, it's the
Yeah.
same thing with graffiti and same. Oh, you're gonna rub us. You're gonna rub out my tag. Okay, that's cool. I'll just paint it again. I'll keep painting it again. Oh, I'll go over here and I'll paint it again. Like I exist, and you will see that I exist one way or the other.
Well, and then
You
and
know.
then the use of acrylic is for ease, or is that for the ability to modify it, or what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, all of it's free. So like I said, the style is by choice. So there's very specific things that I can do specifically with acrylic paints. You can water them down, you can thicken them up, you can sand it easy, and plus they dry.
Yeah.
Like I
Oh
am
yeah,
not
they
gonna
dry
spend a
fast.
year. I'm not gonna spend a year painting one picture. I'm sorry, it's not gonna happen. Like, you
Oh
know,
yeah, that's fair.
and plus oils are very expensive and very messy, and then you mineral spirits and you smell and just like it's just crazy. It's too much. It's too much drama. It's just too much.
Yeah.
Like I need to do what I need to do, and I need to be done, and I need to move on to something else.
And I guess that's use of spray paint as well as the speed at which you can get a layer on.
Yeah, yeah. And also the reason why I use pen and ink thing is because I've done some digital paintings, and it's actually very non-fulfilling at all. It doesn't feel like you've done anything. It's
Oh
like
really? You don't find it as the same satisfaction of doing it for real?
no, not at all, not even close. It's like running a marathon in a car. Like, did you really run that? Did you really run that marathon? I don't think so. Like, uh,
There'll be a bunch of digital artists that are really mad right now.
yeah, I mean, hey, but that's the thing. I grew up drawing on pencil and paper. Like I physically drawing things.
Mm-hmm.
I need to feel that I have physically drawn something, you know? And so that's my compromise. It says, okay, well, you know what? I will draw this, ink it, and then scan it and do the rest digital. That's my compromise because one, I'm not going to sit there and spend hours and days drawing and painting something, right? Because my arms will start hurting.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to ink it and then just do all the coloring in, in the computer and be done with that. Um,
Yeah. So then those are
so
those are printed out and then cut out and then applied to your panels.
so they're decal stickers, right? So like
Okay.
they're printed. I take them to a place, and I have them printed out as decals, as stick on this vinyl sticker
Yeah.
material, and then you peel them off and then apply them to whatever you want to apply them to.
That's cool. Yeah, I guess that's a good way to do it.
Yeah. And plus, that also means that I also instead. So now, since I have the line work and
Mm-hmm.
the line work is digital, and I turn the line work into vector paths.
Yeah.
That means I have those lines forever now, and I can manipulate it now. I can take a character that I've already drawn, take out all the color, apply them in a different situation, and recolor it and make it fit into something else.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a library of imagery that I forever have. I have all these puzzle pieces now.
Yeah, you have
So
all that
and
vector
so
art. I assume you're using Illustrator for
right,
that.
right. And
Okay.
so some of the pieces, like when I did the Ferguson Memorial piece with the battery babies, the Blue Line Complex,
Yeah.
all those arms are drawn separately
Oh God.
on a different on 18 by 24 sheet of paper, and I went to a place and had them scanned. So all the line work I still have, and I can reuse that for anything if I want to. I can reuse that for anything I want.
That's cool.
So which also prevents me having to redraw things, which also prevents my arms from hurting. So
That's
I
fair.
mean, you see the trend here? Like
Yes, so yeah.
work smarter, not harder. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Which is so funny considering how incredibly prolific you are. Well, I guess it allows it.
Well, I mean that's one thing. Is like okay, like I don't particularly like talking about my skill set as far as because I don't ever want to feel like I'm bragging about something.
Yeah. Well,
But
you get
the
to brag
but
today.
it is it is. But I also recognize where I'm at. Like being an artist, yes, you should be humble, but you also should recognize certain truth. Like I am a good artist. I can draw things.
Yeah.
Okay, I can draw a lot of different kinds of things. I had one time I was in when I was in SCAD, I had a friend. I was drawing some kind of realistic thing, and then and the next hour I was drawing some weird cartoony thing. And he came up to me and asked me, like, how are you able to just switch like that?
Yep.
And I'm thinking, like, how are you not able to switch like that? Like, if you
Yep.
can draw something realistic, like it should be easy just to dumb it down. Like, if you can draw a realistic person, just draw the same person, but just don't make it realistic. Like, just draw a generalized eye instead of a very specific eyeball. Like, what's hard about that? You know,
Yeah.
but
Well, I know some
some
who
people
have
really
that
can't
issue.
do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Some people really just can't do that. So it's just like, I can switch styles on a dime. I can be drawing, you know, you know, I can be drawing goofy watercolors and then turn around and be draw Wolverine and then turn around and draw like a portrait of Obama, and then turn around and draw like, if you can draw, you can draw. Period. Is what I'm saying. Is like style is a choice, right? It
Hmm.
goes back to the idea of style is a choice. What you choose to do is a style. It's not the only thing I can do. I can do all kinds of, you know. So, so
Well, is there anything else you'd like to cover today? I think that's about got it for my list of
yeah,
questions and interests in your art styles and.
yeah. I one thing I would say is, if anyone gets anything, would be to, if you want to be good in the future, you have to start now. You
Hey,
know,
that's a good thought.
and
Look at that.
you know, right, exactly. And when you start, don't expect to be good. The blessing of having starting when you're a child or younger is that you don't care about the results per
Yeah.
se. Well, you care what the results are, but you don't care. Like, you know what I mean? Like when I was little, I used to have a really bad temper. I like horrible. Like if I messed up on a drawing that took me out, I would scream and yell and throw things and punch walls and all kinds of stuff.
Hmm.
And then I would walk away pissed off, and then an hour later I would come back and do it over
Hmm.
again. like um, and it's like when you're learning something, and that's the thing when you're old, you after you're a child, you are older longer than you are being a child, hopefully, if you don't
Yeah.
die before right?
Yes.
So people forget, and it's just like people forget how to learn, and
Well, you also forget how
instead,
to be bad at something. You're right about that.
right,
Like, there's
right,
some
right,
value in knowing that being bad at something is just the first step at being sort of okay at something, which is the first step at
exactly.
being kind of okay. Yeah. And
Exactly. And when you grow up in this horrible school system, they train you to only give the right answer. They don't celebrate
yeah.
the wrong. When you're a kid, they say, "Oh, what's his name? Dog." Ah ha ha, so funny. No, his name's not Dog, isn't it? But if you do that in school,
Yeah. It's just
like you get
wrong.
reprimanded.
Yeah.
It's like, "No, you're wrong." You're like, "Oh, I can't believe you did that." Blah blah blah,
There's no
And
progress
so
towards the right answer.
right, right.
Yeah.
And so we're that idea of exploration is beat out of us.
Yeah.
So when it comes to drawing or doing something else that we're not familiar, we don't want to do it because it's not going to be right or it has to be perfect. Like, no, guess what? It's not perfect for me either.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I have to keep doing it every day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, uh, um, and so when you start doing something, you start now knowing that you're going to be bad, but also knowing that you are going to improve so that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you can be good at it. You know, the same thing with music, same thing with drawing, same thing with anything that requires any type of skill or learned behavior. And I really resist this idea of, oh, you're just born talented. Oh, you're just, you know, some of it does have to do with the body that you are born in. Yes, and some of it does have to do with the circumstances that you're put in. Yes, that is true. However, there's also a thing that is called work, you know?
Yep.
And when I was a kid, when my sister or whoever was out playing or went to a friend's house and I couldn't go, guess where I was? I was at the house. Guess what I was doing? Drawings, you know?
Yep.
Like plus since I didn't have a lot of friends that I talked to or anything like that, I didn't really have I never felt like I belonged anywhere. So guess what I would do? I would bring my sketchbook everywhere and I would draw things. That's how I spent my childhood.
Yep.
Okay?
Yeah.
Like I mean I did other things too now. I wasn't strictly doing that. But like the point is, in every situation, I sought opportunities to draw things, you know,
Yep.
and there's pros and cons to that. And in everything in life, you only have three things in life. You have your time, you have your resources. You have your time, your resources, and your relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Resources, as in money, as in
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
necessarily money, but anything at your disposal. Those are the three things that we have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by using those things, you also sacrifice some of those things. If I spend all my time doing X, that means I cannot do Y. If I spend all my resources on Michael Jordan shoes, that means I cannot buy paper. If you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I spend all my right? So like we have the time, we have the resources. It's just that we've used up all of our collateral doing something else.
Mm-hmm.
We saw something else was more important, and therefore we did that thing instead of practicing your guitar or practicing your trumpet. You decided, you know what? I'm just gonna watch TV all day today because I
Yeah.
want to see all the episodes of Ninja Turtles. And instead of doing right,
Yeah.
like I mean, I did that too. I played a lot of video games in my childhood. You know what I mean? Like that was real. I was a huge gamer for a while. So like, but then also in college, even in high school, I kind of gave up television,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I would just draw. I would just drew all day, not all day, and that's probably not the right way to say that. But I chose to spend my time doing something else other than watching TV because honestly, a lot of TV is just stupid and boring anyway. Like seriously, it's just the same recycled ideas over and over and over again with
Yep.
different people.
All right.
So anyway, I don't want to get on a tangent on that because I
Oh no, that's
can't.
fine. But yeah,
uh,
I think that that's a good. I think that that's a really good thought to end on the amount of practice and work and the fact that it's totally okay to be bad at stuff for a while. Um,
yeah, it's
even if you're,
necessary to be bad at
well, it's
stuff.
necessary to be bad at stuff for a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thank you for joining us today. It's been a great
Yep.
talk, and
Yep.
hopefully everybody got to see something new and hear something new. I definitely did. I now know about the universe of your little dudes, and definitely want a kid's book explaining the
Uh
origin
oh.
story of your universe.
Watch out.
Yep, you got
May
to get
happen
to
one
it.
day. I got to start now, so 10 years from now I can be done.
Correct. Get to it. All right.
All right.
Well, I'll talk to you later,
Thanks. I
man.
appreciate it.
Bye bye.
All right. Thanks, man.